Hello everyone, and welcome to my Week 9 Teambuilder video against Classiel and the Maliferous Milotic. He has a roster of Jirachi, Milotic, Aerodactyl, Crocodile, Noivern, Electabuzz, Venusaur, Mega, Tapu Bulu, Entei, Xatu, and Ditto. So this week I'll be bringing a team of Celesteela, Archeops, Lantern, Bronzong, Altaria Mega, and Breloom. So first off is the Celesteela, which is probably my best breaker against his team. What Celesteela does is it's a Fatmon that's able to take care of most of his fat, primarily the Mega Venusaur, which walls the majority of my team, and also becomes very hard to switch into while it does that. So Mega Venusaur doesn't want to stay in due to the threat of Air Slash, and Air Slash eventually killing, especially since I'm a max special attack, and I also have Metal Sound to increase the speed of a KO, and also to allow me to deal with things like Milotic. But it makes it so that things like Entei, which could break my Celesteela, cannot switch in freely. So it's going to take like a solid 40 from an Air Slash, max special attack Air Slash. If I have to, I can make a prediction with Fire Blast and hit a Jirachi, something like that. And with Metal Sound, I'm able to beat down the Milotic. So it's very hard for him to switch into the Celesteela and break it. Leech Seed obviously is just for recovery. I did initially want to go with safety goggles just so that I could avoid sleep powder sleeping from the Mega Venusaur, but I decided leftovers was too valuable, and I would probably just have to play around sleep powder if it exists, and probably just sleep fodder someone off. But yeah, it's mainly here to deal with the Venusaur, but once it deals with the Venusaur, it can pressure the rest of his team because it's hard for him to come in and deal with it. And when there's a Bulu on the other team, you need to bring your Celesteela. What'd I just do? You need to bring your Celesteela. Next up, I have my Archeops, which is just acrobatics, standard, normal, offensive. He doesn't have too many flying resists, and flying is really the best way to break through his defensive core of Mega Venusaur, Milotic. Really, if I don't bring anything that breaks Mega Venusaur effectively, then I'll probably lose to it. So I need to bring Celesteela and this, I think, because if Celesteela gets weakened or anything like that, it could be that it goes down some way unexpected, or Mega Venusaur is just able to Leech Seed it down over time. Then I'm shit out of luck and just lose to the Venusaur if my Celesteela goes down. So Archeops gives me an alternative route of breaking it with some very powerful acrobatic stab. And also offers me a good way to damage his flying switch-ins, which would primarily be things like Aerodactyl, possibly Jirachi, maybe Electabuzz if he chooses to bring it. U-turn giving momentum, knockoff can get rid of some items which can be helpful, and hits the Jirachi hard. And protect allows me to scout out Scarf Jirachi if it is indeed a Scarf Jirachi, which could outrun this and kill it. Then I'm able to scout and see if he went for a U-turn or an Iron Head, and then make a more favorable 50-50, especially if he clicks U-turn. Then I'm pretty much free to stay in. So yeah, that's the Archeops. Next up is the Lantern, which is mainly here to deal with the Milotic, but it also has a good role in dealing with Noivern well. It deals with Jirachi well. It can deal with Aerodactyl, especially given that it has a Shuka. Same thing with Crook and Entei to some extent. So it has a good defensive matchup against a fair portion of his team. It can take hits from a lot of them and just pivot very well. I can use it to come in on a Jirachi and Volt Switch. I can use it to come in on an Aerodactyl possibly, especially if I'm predicting a flying move against something like Breloom. Volt Switch, I can come in on Milotic and just freely Volt Switch and get momentum and do a sizable portion of damage, get something in for free. Can come in on Entei and Volt Switch, just mainly get momentum, which Lantern is fantastic at doing. It's like a baby Rotom Wash. Rest Sleep Talk just so that I get recovery. I can stay healthy over the course of the game if I need to. Hydro Pump with max special attack modest is really gonna leave a mark. It also allows me to hit Crocodile if it chooses to be ballsy and switch on a Volt Switch. Then I can just pump the next turn, eat up the Earthquake with Shuka and kill. And Hydro Pump also allows me to hit Entei and Jirachi for a fair amount of damage if I want to stay in against Jirachi. Next up is Bronzong, which has a good defensive matchup here as well, but it's primarily here for rocks. Heat proof, so I can deal with Entei better. Possible Fire Fang, Z Fire Fang from Arrow, because I feel like that's more likely to bring than Z Earthquake. Also allows me a fairly decent switch into to Jirachi. It can switch in fairly well into Aerodactyl and Noivern, and even Bulu to some extent if it needs to. Venusaur can switch into decently. It doesn't switch into Entei, but Entei doesn't necessarily force it out due to heat proof. But yeah, a very reliable rocker. Gyro Ball will allow me to hit the Arrow, the Noivern, Bulu to some extent, while Toxic hits pretty much everything else. And then if I want just consistent damage, I can click Psywave. I wouldn't say consistent damage, but like solid damage, because Psychic from Bronzong and Zen Headbutt are both way too weak. So Psywave allows me just kind of like spread damage that'll always do at least a decent amount and has potential to do a very solid amount. Yeah, that's it for him. Here's my Altaria, because at this point, if you look at the rest of my team kind of gets dumpstered by Crocodile. So Altaria is mainly here for the Crocodile, but it also has the advantage of checking Blue to some extent, checking Entei to some extent, checking Noivern to some extent. Yeah, Arrow to some extent, Altaria to some extent. So it can to some extent check a lot of things, but it's mainly here for the Crook. I have Defog so that I can keep my Archeops healthy if I feel that's necessary. Body Slam is meant to paralyze the Venusaur on a switch-in, because Venusaur is quite an obvious switch into this. And yeah, getting paralysis is probably the most useful thing Altaria could do to Venusaur. That guarantees makes him slower to my Breloom, which is very useful, as you'll see later. He also has a chance to paralyze Jirachi if it comes in, and paralyzing Jirachi is fantastic, meaning it can't really flinch hacks me to the extent it would before. An Earthquake allows me to hit the Jirachi if I need to, either like on a prediction or something like that. Yeah, and Hair Speed, Creeped Out, Run, No Speed, Milotic, and Venusaur. Lastly is my Breloom, which is a very interesting set this week. Mach Punch has fair potential to win the game, just because if he does bring defensive forms of Venusaur and Milotic, they're both slower than Breloom. Arrow, if I get an SD off, dies to a Mach Punch. Jirachi's taking like 60, Crook is dying, Noivern's taking about 50. Blue could be faster than my Breloom. If not, then my Landslot Berry Natural Gift is going to smack it up, similarly to how it's meant to smack up Venusaur. So I'll have to choose between which one to use it on, and it'll likely be the Venusaur because it's the more reasonable check to Breloom. But even then, if he powers up my Bullet Seed with Grassy Terrain, it becomes so powerful that it's actually able to do sizable damage. Entei is taking probably like 50 as well. Yeah, Xatu could be a problem, but I don't feel that Xatu has a very good matchup here, so I don't think it would come. And Ditto, I guess it would be Mind Games with priority, but I also don't really think Ditto comes to this matchup. But yeah, I'm able to Sword Stance on threats like defensive Milotic, Crocodile, pretty much any time. And draw in Venusaur, which is a very likely switch into this. And if I'm able to draw in the Venusaur, I can hit it with the Natural Gift. And with Rocks up, Max Attack, Adamant, Sword, +2 Natural Gift, Flying, 100 base power will kill Mega Venusaur, even if it's full defense, if rocks are up. And thereafter, I can really just hit the rest of his team very hard with Mach Punch and Bullet Punch. So we'll have to see if that works out, but it would be a very fun set if it does work. Yeah, and eliminating the Mega Venusaur is very big for my team just because it's so hard to kill. And thereafter, Breloom can probably put in a lot of work. So yeah, that's the team, and I'll see you in the battle.